The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Stats by Will and Jim here under the Basket Under Review Network. I am Jim Root, the host, joined by Will Warren. As always, we are talking college basketball. We're trying to do so from a statistical angle. That is where the stats title comes in. Of course, we are, as I said, a part of Basket Under Review. If you are a member and you're listening to this, great. You probably already are. Tell a friend. We appreciate that. It helps us, gets a little more people going into Trilly Donovan's community. It's the best place for talking college basketball, the Discord, the website. We're pumping out great content. Will, you just said that today, how impressed you were with the content we're pumping out here in August, and it's only going to get better as we move towards the season. So I was happy to see you say that because I definitely agree.
I would rank myself 12th out of 12, but Jordan Majewski, I've never, I'll find out in April when I meet him. His new coaches, new schemes pieces have been amazing. Having Brian Ralph on our team is really good. He's got a great writer's mind and knows how to get the angles he wants. Scout team has been great. The burp, I think that they should add in like a can crack or like an actual belch at the top of that show would be pretty good too. So some ideas for them. But everything we've put out so far has just been wonderful. The freelance pieces have been awesome. Loving the 3-man weave previews. Honored to be a part of those this year. Some are calling it the 4-man weave when I'm there. So it's like how they call it 6 guys when I'm there.
That's right. Yeah. We like having you. It's definitely eased the burden on us. Allowed us to dive into our previews a little even more in depth. And yeah, everything you mentioned, the newest burp episode, Basket Under Review podcast, for those unfamiliar, is Eamon Brennan with Ryan Odom, the head coach of Virginia. So really cool episode there. Highly recommend checking that out. Checking out everything under the umbrella that is Basket Under Review. All right, well, we got to start out with a stat of the day. Oh, and for anyone listening, the topic for today is the most interesting coaching seasons for the upcoming year. So we're going to dive into that, each have a list and go back and forth as we typically do on this show. But the stat of the day, it is a niche topic, one of my favorite statistical oddities, an individual player here, Will. You remember Puff Johnson of North Carolina and Penn State fame.
Puke Johnson.
Hey, there we go. We'll start with just the 2023-24 season. Puff Johnson played 571 minutes for Penn State. How many assists and how many turnovers did Puff manage in that campaign?
Okay. I admittedly did not watch a lot of Penn State. Puff Johnson, I'm remembering, is off ball almost entirely. Pretty low usage. So 571 minutes, you said?
Yes.
Okay. If we're bringing this up, it's got to be really low. I'm going to wager 14 assists, and we'll say 25 turnovers.
All right. The correct answer is 5 assists.
Jesus.
And 4 turnovers.
That's amazing.
Isn't it incredible?
That is cardio at its finest.
Yes, he is just catching the ball and shooting or giving it right back to somebody else anytime he touches it. I also have for his career 1,705 minutes spanning North Carolina and 2 years at Penn State. I'll let you guess assists and turnovers now that you've got that trend line from that season.
17. I'm going to stick with 14 for the career. 20 turnovers for the career.
Okay, so he had 38 assists. He really went nuts in some of his other seasons.
I can't get a beat on this guy. He was puffing it out.
Yeah, 38 assists, 28 turnovers in like 5 years of being in a rotation, especially 4 years where he played a lot. It's remarkable. The 5 assists, 4 turnover year is something I feel like will be never repeated in sports. Like I don't know how you challenge that. Just that much playing time with that little impact in terms of playmaking, good or bad, is truly remarkable.
Can we start a Puff Johnson challenge this year?
Yes.
The fewest minutes it takes to record 5 assists and 4 turnovers.
Okay. I like that.
I think it can be done in like 12 if you're really going for it.
Braden Smith starts really getting loose with it in the first game of the year, spraying it around. I think we could have fun there. trying to think of like who's the opening night, the matchups of who's actually going to be playing and accomplishing the Puff Johnson challenge right away. But yes, we're laying down that gauntlet to all players and coaches. We want you to have a player put up 5 assists and 4 turnovers in as little time as possible.
Who in the media game do you think is capable of a Puff Johnson challenge?
I'm going to say Evan Miyakawa because he's just active. He's just all over. He's in better shape than everybody else. He's clearly still playing soccer all the time. So he's running laps around everybody else. He's something waiting to happen at all times, whereas the rest of us are lollygagging.
Oh, that's too perfect, I think.
Yes, exactly. That is the stat of the day. We are now going to get into the main topic after a quick shout out to Home Field, our loyal, lovely sponsor here at Stats by Will and Jim and the Basket Under Review Network. It's the best place to get your college sports apparel for the upcoming seasons, both college football, which has actually tipped off or kicked off at this point, and college basketball that is coming in just over 2 months. They've got great retro logos for any school you can probably think of. They got schools that you went to, schools that you never heard of, schools that you maybe don't like at all, but they have great visual graphics going. Just really highly recommend their gear. It's comfortable, it's soft, it ages well. I've got quite a few shirts from a long time back. It's good quality stuff. They just opened a brick and mortar location in Bloomington, Indiana. Saw them with the ribbon cutting ceremony, and you can get 15% off your first purchase with the code BURNER15. That is BURNER15. If you're a first-time purchaser, make sure to use that. Gets you a little discount, lets them know that you're coming from the Basket Under Review Network. So it's good for everybody. A win-win situation there. Shout out to Home Field Apparel, homefieldapparel.com.
I want to give a special shout out to something on their website. So I was in Detroit this past weekend. Just a little 48-hour getaway. Got in my Tigers game of the year. Not always easy to get to when you live in East Tennessee, but I try and get out there at least once or twice a year. Got in my run, you know me. Ran by the campus of Wayne State University, now named the Warriors, but they were formerly, as my dad loves to tell me, formerly named the Tartars, the sauce. Tartars. Okay. But shout out to them, because if you want Wayne State University apparel, you can get it at Home Field. They have 5 pieces of apparel on there as I look. That's who else, truly? Who else?
That's right. They got Slippery Rock, they got Colorado School of Mines. There's all kinds of funny or fun little bits on there. So highly, highly recommend checking it out for your college sports apparel needs and wants. Not just needs, your wants as well. All right, well, let's get into this. The topic we'd been talking about a little bit, put off for a couple weeks, but I think it's a good time to get into it. The most interesting coaching seasons for the upcoming college basketball year. Could take this in any kind of way, whether it's somebody you just, you think they are about to break through, or you think somebody that's on the hot seat, or anybody in between, all of that. So we went in order, 1 through 10, as per usual. And also, per usual, I will let Will kick it off with his number 1 most interesting coaching season for the upcoming campaign.
See, Midwestern niceness, that is, you cede the floor every time, and I do appreciate it.
Well, you're smarter. I gotta let you go.
That's false. First. That's some BS. That's rat poison. My number 1, and I'm interested to see if we agree here. So, like you said, we could have taken this many different directions, and this is not intentional given how the week is unfolding with our content. I have Hubert Davis of UNC at number 1 as my most interesting coaching season that lies ahead. I think I tried very hard to not make this list just like, hot seat guys that really needed to win. I think that a good mix of like second year guys who had really good first years, but have like loaded up for year 2 or year 1 experiments, or, there's a variety of stuff we're going to get to. Hubert is really the only hot seat guy I have. And it's kind of up to you, and really up to like how well you treat the whole like alumni theory at a school of how hot the seat really is. Because Trilly put in our Discord, because the day we're recording this, 3-Man Weave put out the UNC preview at number 24, I believe, right?
Yep, that was correct.
He feels that UNC has to make the round of 32 at minimum to save Hubert's job. And this can't be like a sneak in as a 10 or 11 seed, squeak out a first round win type of thing. This has to be like one, wearing home uniforms in the round of 64, and two, not having to win on a buzzer beater or something. I would go a step further based on Hubert's career so far. I mean, you can tell me if I'm being a little rude here, but if he can't make the Sweet 16 and or be a protected seed 1 through 4 for the vast majority of the season, I'm not really sure what the point is in like another run of this. Uh, Everybody knows they spent roughly $14 million on their roster, which is at minimum a top 5 spend in the sport. We never really know the finite figures on these, but I think we can say with pretty good clarity, this is at least a top 5 most expensive spend. And I think it says something about the construction of this roster that in our best consensus, the 3-man weave group, they barely crack the top 25. And I do think people have given Hubert a little leniency because he made the title in year 1, because he was a 1 seed and made the Sweet 16 in year 3. But you look at the end of Roy, and outside of those final 2 years where it did go, haywire a little bit, this is just from 2015 through 2019, 10th, 2nd, 3rd, 8th, 7th in KenPom. Hubert so far, 16th, 43rd, 9th, 31st, with 2 massive underperformances. So I find him the most fascinating because I think every single game has the capability to be an existential crisis for their fan base. And as a neutral, who I do generally think the sport is better when UNC is good, I will be honestly very invested in pretty much every UNC game outside of the tomato cans this year. And we've seen UNC even struggle with quad 4s before. So it's not out of the question that those could be interesting. I do feel for people who are tired of like the Duke storyline last year, because this is the second straight year a Tobacco Road program is going to be the most interesting team in the sport.
If you're tired of Tobacco Road in college basketball, what are you doing? It's going to be atop the storylines, pretty frequently. But I'm with you. I had Hubert second. My first note is the roster is worth how much? I just don't look at this and see. Yeah, this is a top 5 spend. It's nowhere. I don't think it's near top 10 in terms of roster talent. And yeah, last year when they sat 14-11 on February 10th, having just gotten blown out at Clemson in like maybe the last chance they had for a big Q1 win, and it seemed like they were destined to not make the tournament. I'd heard from 1 or 2 people that he was done and it was over. Hubert was not going to be the coach anymore. But then they rip off 6 straight wins. They compete with Duke in the ACC tournament. I know Flag didn't play, but they were right there. Got to the semifinals, and then they make the tournament. They blow out San Diego State, and it just kind of feels like, all right, inertia is enough to keep him around. Let's give him another shot. He showed enough promise at the end, but it feels like it's running out of steam. And you mentioned the finishes in KenPom. This is the number 4 program rank per KenPom. Finishing 30th and 43rd is like pretty unacceptable. You need to be elite with the spend they're putting in, the resources they put in, the investment that they have. So if he's not going to be able to consistently show that kind of upside, and his best season is Sweet 16 or kind of meander through the year and then have a postseason run, that's not really North Carolina quality. And maybe they want to go outside of the family. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating. The roster build's kind of odd. I don't know if there's enough playmaking, creation, ball movement with this group. The depth is maybe a little shaky, especially given the roster spend. He went like the complete opposite direction in point guard archetype, from ball dominant passer turnover to shooter, standstill ball mover in Kean Evans after Cadeau. I think it's fascinating. Isn't an overreaction. Is the roster going to work? We'll see. Well, if in your best guess, do you think it works this year, or do you think it is not quite enough?
I would say that it works to basically the extent of where you guys have them ranked. I think, because we had the question today after the preview of, would you have UNC or NC State higher? And obviously NC State hasn't been listed yet, so I think people are going to find out they are ranked higher. But I would personally have them at like roughly the same like 5 or 6 seed range. And again, I mean, like, that's technically working, I think. That means that probably the defense was pretty good and the offense was like bearable. But again, if you get to March and they're 23rd in KenPom or whatever, are you happy? I don't think you should be. Not for $14 million.
if you get swept by Duke and NC State, that's going to stick in the craw of many a booster, I would imagine. And we are recording this on a Tuesday, and I don't know if you know this, but Wednesday's team will be NC State. And so
I
people
looked
will
ahead
have
in the ghost admin. Don't you worry.
good. People will have seen that as this episode is released. So plenty of discussion to be had, plenty of comparison to be made between those two schools. And I'm sure UNC will start to feel like, hey, we want that higher upside. We want that coach like Will Wade. That's a Cavalier, something like that. Not a Virginia Cavalier, but somebody that's a little bit more of a rogue.
Bennett.
And yes, exactly. Very, very curious how that one works out. I did have Hubert number 2 in mind. Will had him number 1. I'm going to stay in the Blue Bloods for my number 1 here, Will. I am most fascinated this year with Bill Self's upcoming season.
He's my number 2.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. So we are on the same page. There are the health issues that, may or may not cut his tenure a little shorter than people think. He missed an NCAA tournament because he went in the hospital. He had a procedure this offseason that he is supposed to heal fully from, but you just never know with that kind of stuff starting to wear on him. It's his first year without DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams in half a decade. Also, Hunter Dickinson is gone. It feels a little to me, Will, I try to do, you're better with comparisons than I am, but like a movie sequel where you don't bring the cast back. I just watched Speed, and I'm scared of watching Speed 2 Cruise Control because the director's back and Sandra Bullock is back, but there's no Keanu Reeves. It's just going to feel really different. And it does feel like, hey, this is a big season for Bill Self to prove he can still succeed in this era, refilling his roster with transfers, relying on a freshman, not being able to cultivate the same internal development where Frank Mason begats Devontae Graham, who begats the next point guard. So this one, I'm just super tuned in here. And if it is by some, surprise, Bill Self's last year in Lawrence, that starts a major coaching carousel turn. So very, very intriguing to me, and obviously for you too, with number 2 on your list.
I toyed with having them a little lower, but I did think it's fair. Because rare is it that you enter a season where, realistically speaking, we get to 7 or 8 months from now. Yeah, whatever. And 2 of what we would agree to be the 5 Blue Bloods could have new coaches. That does not happen ever, really. I mean, like that's a very rare concurrence of things. I guess actually the most recent time.
That's like a solstice or a Halley's Comet type of thing. In
I guess the most recent time would have been UNC and Indiana post-COVID, but that was different because they both had like alumni hires lined up, or like one guy was already on staff and sort of handpicked, and the other was, again, like more or less handpicked by that AD. This would be different because with Kansas, we can, it's really hard to like. Is it Danny Manning who's the best coach? That's a Bill Self offshoot.
Jacques Vaughn,
which is
who hasn't been in college.
Like not really what you're jacked up over. And then with UNC, I think UNC would be in a better position just because there's a bit more vast of a, coaching familiarity base there. But I can remember the days when people were like, "Oh, Wes Miller's next up," and now that doesn't look so hot. So with KU, everybody you talk to that's not affiliated with them gives a generalized timeline of like 1 to 2 more seasons. And I find that fascinating because this is, I don't know how you feel. I would arguably say the very best coach of the last 20 years in the sport. Probably the most accomplished, definitely the best quality of wins on the whole. And the upside of this team is heavily reliant on several transfers and a future top 3 draft pick. There are so many unknowns with this. And like you said, this is the first team in a while without the KU stalwarts we're used to, without like the backbone of the franchise, to say it in that term, and coming off of 2 of the 3 worst years he's ever had at KU. I could not really tell you what I expect. I could definitely see like a post-hype bump for them where they're like surprisingly, 11th at the end of the season. They're like pretty good the whole way, 2 or 3 seed. Or I could see a continuation of the same where they're like a 7, 8 seed quality and he kind of has to quietly say his goodbyes at year's end. We really don't know, and I think that's going to make their entire season. There's a lot of like possibilities where that can turn in a dime one way or the other.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, he went, I believe it was 20 straight years with a top 4 seed. and then last year got a 7. Like, it was the first time he fell out of that protected group, the top 16 reveal a month before Selection Sunday. Kansas is always in that batch, and that was not the case this year. Part of me, I get a little gut sense, Will, that it's going to be the Tom Izzo renaissance. Last year, he kind of proved, hey, I still have it. Maybe he, based around a freshman, but Izzo, there was starting to be whispers that he wasn't going to work out in this era, couldn't handle transfers, and then he wins the Big Ten outright easily, makes the Elite Eight, really, really good team. And Kansas, maybe this is the refreshing breath of fresh air that Bill Self needs, with a brand new cast of characters and a little more youth and a different direction. He doesn't have to play through Hunter Dickinson. Like, when you have Hunter Dickinson, that is your style. You don't really have a choice. So maybe there's a little more flexibility to it. I could see defense leading the way this year for the Jayhawks, but man, it is a true mystery and could have heavy ripple effects throughout the sport if they're having to move on come March.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 3, Will. I assume we're going to divert pretty hard on this list, so I'm curious where you went on number 3.
You're not going to be shocked. I have a lot of options here. I went with Pat Kelsey. Very circuitous route of the Louisville coaching search a year ago, where it seemed like it was dusty, and then it surprisingly wasn't. I think that dropped at like halftime of that Tennessee-Texas round of 32 game, just out of nowhere. And I was like, well, I can't focus on the game anymore. This is giant news. And then it was briefly Richard the Younger from New Mexico, and then it was like a whole bunch of other options. Then it was Pat Kelsey, and I can remember there being such a huge split on this, whereas like, he hasn't really been at a job like this. The systems worked, obviously, but we weren't really sure how this would go. And I thought year 1 was very good, represented a real overachievement, one they hadn't had in quite a while, honestly. But this is the year, and they came out and said it, even before the portal really got going. They were planning to spend $8 to $10 million on this roster, if not more. I would wager it's probably more based on how the portal shook out. They've pushed in all the chips. This feels like the year, in a sort of like power vacuum year at the top of the sport, where, yeah, Duke is going to be at the top of the ACC again, but Louisville's very well positioned to be potentially 1B to their 1A. It's on paper the best Louisville roster, not only since Pitino, but since a few years back in Pitino's run. This is a very expensive roster, and it's a real experiment to me in just how great Louisville is likely to be under Pat Kelsey. Is this top 5? Is this top 10? Are they only top 20? I don't really know. And that's what makes it so exciting. I know that the offense is going to be a lot of fun, but we've seen Pat Kelsey have some defensive issues in the past, and I want to see how well can he rectify that, and how well can this team gel together, despite, potentially being able to go 11 deep if they want.
Yeah, the offense you mentioned, we talked about it. I talked about it with Isaac on our initial show where RIP. Really? The doves just flew into the air at both of our screens. But yeah, the offense is going to be explosive, and it seems like it fits exactly what Kelsey wants to do. 3 straight years in the top 20 of 3-point attempt rate, and so they go out and get Adrian Woolley and Isaac McNeely and Ryan Conwell, 3 guys that are going to pour in triples to go with Mikal Brown Jr., another great shooter, the freshman coming in to run the show. They definitely spent for Shenander Frew, the big-time German recruit they have coming over to fill in at center. It's been built to have a giant year. I'm curious, Will, where you think they'll land. Not, I know you haven't done a top 25 ballot or something, but I've gone back and forth with them where I get enamored by the offense. And I start to think about whether the defense is going to be able to hold up its end of the bargain. Are they going to play in transition too much? Is there enough rim pressure when they get in the half court? I'm generally trending towards more positive and optimistic with this team, but where do you land?
I'm in the same boat. I could definitely see them underperforming, where it just doesn't all come together. There's like a little bit too many cooks type of thing. But by the same token, I can totally see this being such an overpowering amount of talent that by a year end, this is a top 5 team. I would personally have them, I don't know, 10th. 10th feels right. I think that's about where I would say, and top 10 for them is awesome. That's a great run. One thing I did notice, and I will bring up here, So last year, preseason Ken Palm 64th, finished 28th, 8th seed out in round of 64. Can you tell me perhaps what year they were preseason 62nd and finished 23rd and went out in the round of 64?
Was that like Chris Mack's first year?
Chris Mack's first year. And so that's where I kind of struggle with Pat of like, I really like Pat Kelsey. I think he's totally different than Chris Mack. I think he's hopefully a little more, easy to succeed here. And Mack did get robbed of a 2020 tournament that I think they would have done quite well in. But this is a year that's going to set up the years ahead. And that makes it really intriguing for me if do we get to March and this is just a 4 seed and we're like, well, they were still really good, but they weren't quite all we thought they would be. Or is this year where it's like Louisville's a 1 or a 2 seed at year's end, Pat Kelsey feels like the next big thing, and we don't really know what the limit is for them. I'm really interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he never like blew away the ceiling at Winthrop or Charleston. He was really good. He had the 30-win season at Charleston that was the best in a while. But, he never had like the Mike Young Wofford year where they're a top 25 team. And so I'm also curious, how high is the Pat Kelsey ceiling? And it feels like this is the roster where we figure it out. So I'm with you. I'm intrigued. I actually did not have him on my list though. So that means we're going to get to more different names, which is exciting. We love that. My number 3, I promise mine aren't all hot seats either. I have a few hot seats, but this one is one of the most intriguing hot seats to me because of the parallels with another similar guy. But number 3 for me is Jake Diebler at Ohio State. If he's on the Rodney Terry clock, he's in trouble because he's the second full year after being hired interim mid-year. The mid-year hire went well enough to bring him on full time, but then last year, I don't feel like we learned that much about him. I'm still kind of in the dark. He had a really good Ken Palm season, but pretty bad in terms of results and late game execution, luck, however you want to frame it. I think we're going to learn a lot more this year. It's his last year with his senior point guard, Bruce Thornton, who started basically every game of his college career. This is a team you have to win with. And like Hubert and Bill Self, there could be major impact on the carousel at the end of the season if this does open up and becomes a job that's in demand. So I'm very curious to learn more about Diebler and how things fare with a very offense-tilted roster, one we've discussed a little bit on this pod before, Will. Did Jake Diebler make your list?
He would have been 11th. I had him as my top honorable mention, so I'll knock him out here. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without being mean, but F it. Don't consider the roster construction. Don't consider any of that. If the coach of this team was Greg McDermott, where would you have ranked them?
At least 10 spots higher, maybe 15 spots higher. Like
therein lies the rub, because I kind of think based on just like roster alone, this is a top 20 team. You could easily sell me on this being a top 20 roster. You cannot sell me on Diebler being a good basketball coach based on what we have seen to date. Because our friend John Fendler has outlined it numerous times, kind of got the job based on 3-point variance. Last year's hot start where they beat Texas had a couple of, I think they beat Kentucky by like 22, right? That was a early season result. That was weird. Their entire first month of the season driven by 3-point variance. And then once it evened out, they were the quality of like an NIT 3 or 4 seed the rest of the way. And that was with largely the same backcourt and a lot of the same players. And so I'm with you. There's a lot that needs to be proven this year for me. I am well aware of the offensive talent. I really do like what they have here. There was some weird criticism of Bruce Thornton going around the day of the preview, and I can't really get down with it. I think Bruce Thornton is more of a unfortunate infection of the disease rather than the cause of it. But I've really got to see them be able to stop Seoul defensively against really good Big Ten teams. And I've just got to see these guys be consistent. I don't ask for every team to be consistent, but I think this is one where it's well earned. I would like to see them take better shots. Diebler's system is almost a carbon copy of Chris Holtman's, which every Ohio State fan hated by the end. I've got to see something change, better or worse, for me to really I don't know. For me to believe anything about Diebler, because I feel like he's such an empty book, and it's not good because if you're the head coach of inarguably one of the 20 best programs of the last 2 decades, people forget how good they were under Mata. Like, you got to show something ASAP. This really needs to be your year to launch.
Yep. I mean, they ended up firing Jim O'Brien, but he had a 4 seed, a 3 seed, a 5 seed, a 4 seed in consecutive years too. Like it's not just Mata. This program has resources. It is very possible to win big there. And if you're 30th and finish 37th, and this year preseason, I don't know if they're going to be like 26th in Ken Pom and finish 24th. It's probably enough to hang on and stick around, but it doesn't feel like the accessing of the ceiling that this program has. And I don't know if the roster will be better next year without Thornton and having to mine through the portal again.
Yeah, and we really haven't seen an evidence that he can build through the portal. Like last year's roster is very incomplete feeling. This year's roster is, fun. I wouldn't argue that, but do we think that it can really stop anybody? We'll see.
Yeah.
And I do also have to say, if he does get released, there will be like a silent sigh of relief on my end. Not because I don't like him, but because every time I've watched them for 2 years, I get him confused with John, who was the 3-point specialist and like unbelievably annoying player they had for like 4 years with Evan Turner. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the guy who was lighting it up. And it's like, oh no, he was just for Valparaiso. So
yeah, not John, who shot I think like 52% from 3 on 250 attempts or something.
Oh, he was insane,
completely ludicrous level shooter. But yeah, we will see. All right, number 4 on our list. Let's go to yours, Will.
Very similar to Pat Kelsey. I've got Kevin Young of BYU at number 4. Weird year for them. I thought the first half was disappointing, and then it seemed like mid-January to February, somewhere in there, they finally realized they couldn't play through Igor Demon very well. And the way they changed it to be more about Richie Saunders was like the instant they took off and were a top 10 team the rest of the way. Outside of the Jimmer era, this is the most nationally relevant I would say BYU has been since Danny Ainge was on the roster in the late 70s, early 80s. There's a very real chance that on night one, this is one of the 6 or so best rosters in the sport. You have DeBansa, you got Saunders back, you got a ton of talent on this team. And we think we know that Kevin Young is a good coach based on the close to last season, but we have also seen a lot of, like half-season wonders in the sport. And so it's on him to prove last year wasn't just sort of a fluke, and I don't think it really was. But we have to see the defense get a bit better despite largely returning the same personnel. We've got to see Rob Wright slide in at point guard and how that's going to work. I'm really, really intrigued by what they are, because I would hear out anything from like opening night number 3 to opening night number 25. I don't know.
And yeah, I think you got to figure out reining in and making sure AJ DeBansa plays within a system and is contributing to winning rather than taking 25 shots a game and displaying what he is for the pros. Like there's a lot of question marks for a team that is uber talented. Like I will have no qualms with somebody talking up the talent of this roster.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to maybe put it together, make it fit correctly. You mentioned the defense last year. It wasn't great. And some of that's the personnel, but I don't know if the personnel is a whole lot better on that end this year. I'll tease a little something I wrote for The Athletic coming soon about mixing in zone defenses, and BYU did that a lot last year to try to solve some of the personnel issues that they had. They probably will continue to do that this year. But yeah, Kevin Young, I was skeptical of a guy who hadn't spent time in college, but when they're building it as basically a pro team, like free agency every year, and the guy does seem to know his X's and O's. He was very high regarded as an assistant in the pros. It worked pretty smoothly coming down to college, and with the roster he's got, yeah, I like that comparison to Kelsey, because it's like, all right, we know BYU is going to have money. They've said it repeatedly. Let's find out how high that ceiling is based on this roster of having an elite player, some returners, and potentially really strong supporting cast.
I did want to look it up really quick, just so we had it here. So after they made a couple of lineup changes on January 14th against Oklahoma State. So they dropped Mag and Dallin Hall from the starting lineup that day. And Cannon Catchings as well got 86th. But they made a huge shift. And from then on, 12th best per Torvik, 16-5. Number 2 offense, number 73 defense. So the upside case there is that the defense just goes from bad to tolerable. Like if the defense is 30th, you're in essentially the territory Alabama was in last year.
Yeah, they finished 6th in KenPom, and the offense could be just as good as Alabama's top 5 offense last year. I think there's real upside for that for BYU. So if that's the version of the team, that's a legit national title contender. It's always nice when those late surges are something lineup or approach based rather than the Diebler 3-point regression just suddenly making you look a lot better than you were. Okay, my number 4, this one's more in the Bill Self vein of things, is Kelvin Sampson. And we obviously know what he is. We are pretty confident he's one of the best coaches of this era, but I am intrigued because this could be maybe his last like super elite top 1 or 2 team coming into the preseason, at least for a little bit. And he's 70. This will be his age 70 season. So I don't know how many more years he'll have. There's a potential to lose all 5 starters to graduation or the NBA if Cenac and Harwell really show out and the NBA comes calling for them. Tugler potentially could go pro as well. It could feel like a bit of a true reset for Houston next offseason. Maybe this is Kelvin Sampson's last year. It's less exciting from a carousel standpoint because I think we know it's going to be a hand down to Kellen, his son. That's the very, very likely succession plan there. But just from a legacy standpoint for Kelvin Sampson, the feeling of getting a title after 5 straight seasons in the top 2 of KenPom would really, I think, stamp his Hall of Fame case and just like the legacy of a guy who actually was able to get over the hump, win a title. Jim Boeheim's got 1, Tom Izzo's got 1, Tony Bennett's got 1. I think getting up onto that echelon of coaches with the postseason title, potentially with the last chance to get it, I'm super intrigued by that. And it's obviously a different intrigue than finding out how good Kevin Young is, but that's where I landed, Will.
I had him nowhere near my list, I'll be honest.
Okay.
But
all right.
I will say the intrigue skyrockets for me if they make the Final Four again. And then I think you'll be able to tell. Like if this is a year where they get upset in the Elite 8 or Sweet 16, because I think we're on the same page. Like we expect them to be a 1 seed again. Like without a ton of drama surrounding that. Like the worst case scenario for any Houston team right now is a 2 seed. Which, I mean, I got to see it to believe it at this point. If they make the Final Four, I would say they skyrocket up my list because then the potential really is there for a walk-off, which would be the coolest storyline in a really long time, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. And they've got the path of potentially, if they do get a 1 seed and are high enough up the S curve, there's a regional in Houston, so they could be local.
And they got Texas Southern to host it, so they can go to it.
Very smart by
that's brilliant
to pawn that off. Yep.
We could have. You're actually making me think we could have an all walk-off Final Four.
Oh, with like Kansas, Houston,
Tennessee, Rick Barnes.
Okay.
And Izzo?
Oh, I like this idea. I want that badly now.
The all walk-off Final Four. Oh, that would be all 4 coaches retiring together.
Yeah, they just announce it arm in arm on the like right one of the press conferences before the game start. We've all decided that whoever
the average age of coaching gets younger by like 3 full years instantly.
yeah, without those guys. All right, I'm fully in on this idea. I want it. They won the regional in Indy last year, and that's where the Final Four is this year. So at least a little bit of familiarity, although the format and the setup of the stadium will be different since they like cut it in half last year. It was really weird. He just kind of got up in there for me just in terms of legacy. Okay, you're number 5, Will.
Ben McCollum of Iowa. This is the ultimate test of D2 Drake, now D2 Iowa to some extent. I know like they don't have everybody back, whatever, sue me. But this is like, to me, how quickly can a rise happen? Because when Ben McCollum was hired at Drake after many, many years of excellence at D2 Northwest Missouri, I think everyone thought like, well, Ben's going to be there for like 3 or 4, maybe longer years and just, build up, get his system right. And he's going to win the MVC a couple of times. And he's going to really show everybody like this can work at the D1 level. He's a brilliant coach. And then he blew expectations so far out of the water last year that he got a Big Ten job. And is probably going to enter the year in most metrics top 30 at least. I mean, when the night one expectation for a guy who was a Division II coach 16 months ago is to wear home uniforms in the round of 64 at a Big Ten school, that is crazy. That is a fast rise. And so they're going to do it with, again, a mostly new roster. I know Cooper, is it Cooper Cook? Cooper, I don't want to say the wrong
I think it's Koch.
Cooper
I'm not positive. I'm not positive, so don't hold
like
me
the
to
New
that.
York mayor?
Yeah,
Okay.
it might be.
Okay, well, sure. Cooper Crotch at Ford will be a big piece for Iowa. But no, I mean, you get to bring in essentially, 70% of the Drake rotation from last year. So I'm really fascinated by this because not only is this a test of McCollum's two-way system at the highest level, and we had a really good discussion the other day in the channel about how McCollum's teams sort of use the shot clock as like not like a reset of like get the ball back, but like if you don't get a good shot off and you have a shot clock violation, there's no transition opportunity the other way. Their actual steal rate allowed is always very low, even at the D2 level. The non-steal rate is unusually high, but that's because they're not afraid of a 30-second violation. They don't see it as a big deal. They see it as a chance to reset and play their half-court style. And it allows them to assert pace even more. So I want to see a lot of things here. Like, can Schertz play 39 minutes again? I don't know about all that. Can they play that slow again? Can they dominate the boards the way they did last year? Does our King Alvaro from Robert Morris add a completely new dimension to what they do offensively? Because they didn't have anything like that at the 4 last year. Can Maniau translate up? Can Tavion Banks be big off the bench? I've got so many questions about them because while I feel like their range is very well defined, disagree with me if you want, but I feel like at year's end in KenPom, they will be somewhere between 20 and 35. I feel like that's a pretty stout range. I don't think they can go much higher than that.
Yeah.
But if they end up on the higher end of that range, if they get some close game luck, like if we get to Selection Sunday and these guys are a 4 seed, I think it might be the story of the sport. Because, again, this is a D2 national. It would be like Lance Leipold taking Kansas to the CFP for me if Iowa was like a 3 or a 4 seed this year.
You're speaking my language as a Wisconsin native. He was UW Whitewater, just absolute legend there in the football world. So, yeah, I'm afraid to say anything about Ben McCollum because I've pissed off so many fan bases already with my pro Ben McCollum narrative and ranking him very highly in the Big Ten. I ranked him second in the Big Ten in coaches on the 3-Man Weave podcast. And so anyone that didn't listen to that, here is your turn to get mad at me.
But the good news for you is
crazy.
I don't think that Illinois or Indiana, to my knowledge, has the version of that Auburn guy who gets like really, really mad online whenever anything negative happens.
That's true. Yes, that is very fortunate. Michigan State was also not real pleased with me, which was understandable. Taking a leap. I'm a huge believer in McCollum's upside potential and him delivering on that upside and potential in the Division I level. It's very I don't know. We'll see if it happens this year because I've got a couple other coaches cited like this. I mentioned it with Diebler. Like, this is his last year with Schertz. Like, it's going to look really different for him following season at Iowa, and we know they're not rolling in NIL money and are going to like quickly rebuild this great roster. I think he's going to need some development. So this is a rather big year for him to show that he can deliver at this level. I think he'll end up with some rosters that have more true D1 Big Ten caliber guys, but it's still got his superstar right now, and he's got quite a bit of shine and luster on his name. So we'll see if he's able to deliver right away. Okay, my number 5 was another first-year coach who was at Drake. It's Darren DeVries at Indiana.
He's my number 6, so perfect.
All right. Hey, we're back to crossing over. I was scared to put McCollum on my list, so I just didn't. But I think I'm glad you mentioned him because he was worth discussing. So yes, DeVries, he's got the 1-year head fake at West Virginia that kind of draws some eyes. This is his last year with a guaranteed stud as his son on the roster. That is a big part of it. The expectations from IU fans for a quick build and a quick turnaround after Mike Woodson are pretty high. But I think this roster is like pretty clearly worse than what Woodson had last year. I know they spent a ton on it, but it was a tough market to figure out. Maybe there's a little bit better fit here than last year's IU roster, but are they going to be a lot better in advanced analytical rankings? I don't know. Are they going to be able to play defense? I'm not sure. I think it'll be refreshing for IU fans no matter what, because the style is so drastically different. I talked about it in my preview on Basketball Under Review of they have 8 straight years outside the top 300 in percentage of points scored via the three. And West Virginia was 37th in the country last year. So there's going to be shots going up. They recruited a ton of shooting. I think that will be refreshing in itself, but IU fans also crave success. Can DeVries get it done right away with a rather expensive roster with a tough year to build? Tell me why you had DeVries 6th.
Can you tell me the last, actually, how about this? Tell me the last time that Indiana beat their preseason rank at KenPom. In what term?
I'm going to say it was Joe Biden, and Woodson actually beat it once.
First term Barack Obama in 2011, 2012.
That far back? Holy cow. For some reason, I thought Woodson had done it once.
So, yes, technically Archie tied it in 2020, preseason 34th, finished 34th. Yeah. And Tom tied it in 2016, 11th and 11th. But 2012, from 49th to 9th, is the last time they've done it. So let's just say, so right now at Torvik, and I try not to look at these too much, but right now at Torvik, they're 42nd. If they open that at KenPom, all they got to do is finish top 40 to beat it for the first time since, God, I mean, who was the Super Bowl? New York Giants, since the Giants won the Super Bowl. Since I was a college freshman.
And yeah, New York's not been sniffing Super Bowls recently, that's for sure.
But Indiana specifically, I actually really like the offensive build of their roster. They spent a lot of money on it, and you might not think it based on the names you see, but like Lamar Wilkerson, I hate doing this, but I am going to say it's got a little bit of Chaz Lanier vibes. Could really light it up from 3 on off-ball screens. Big Tucker, obviously, is going to be huge for them. I like Reed Bailey a lot, and I have loved Tatum Connerway for 3 years now. So I'm in on those. And even the bench, like you got some microwave pieces, like Nick Doran off the bench is fun. Connor Enright is interesting, if questionable. The problem for me, obviously, is the defense. I don't really know what they can do rim protection wise. That's never been like a huge aspect of any DeVries defense, or DeVries, however you say it. But it is going to be harder in a Big Ten that's more physical and, stronger down low than they're really used to. And the way they played against, deeper, tougher front courts last year at West Virginia could be at times concerning, especially post Tucker injury. But he did design a great defense last year, and I don't think it's impossible he could design a solid and fine one this year to go with what I think is probably a top 20, top 25 offense. So my question here is, what is the return on investment for him that A, gets IU fans excited going forward, and B, makes the roster worthwhile? Because to me, I kind of think it's got to be top 30.
I've got another coach that's kind of like this on my list. And I love that question of like, what does this year look like compared to the prior coach that frustrated them, where the fan base feels really good about the progress, the results. I know some IU fans in the Discord have said they'd really just be content making the tournament because they weren't under Mike Woodson or they didn't the last 2 years. But I feel like they're going to want a little more based on the investment. And again, having that ace in the hole of DeVries just coming along with him and probably relatively cheap NIL wise compared to what he would get on the open market. That's not going to be there all the time. So I am also intrigued by that. You mentioned, gosh, I did not know they had not beaten KenPom preseason rank for that long. DeVries has done it 6 of 8 times as a coach for the last 5 years. So he's got a track record of doing so. So it's a little bit of a immovable object meets unstoppable force here. Which one's going to actually reign supreme there? Okay, so that was your number 6. We're on to your number 7, I believe.
Yes. I am surprised this one hasn't been mentioned yet, I will be honest. Bucky McMillan at Texas A&M.
That's a good one. I should have had him on there. That's a great one.
We've never seen this style work at the high major level. Not in 30 plus years. I'm having to think back in my mind to like the last true up and down, nonstop, crazy, fun style Is it Billy Tubbs at Oklahoma in the early 90s? Am I missing something in between?
Yeah, because Bob Huggins didn't play that fast. Like they were press Virginia, but they weren't quite as up tempo as what Bucky does. So
That's what I'm
yeah,
thinking. It's like half that.
yep,
And they were so dominant in shot volume that it kind of covered up the fact they couldn't shoot.
yes.
So, but like, I guess the closest comp we would have in recent memory would have been Brad Underwood's Oklahoma State year. Wildly successful in offense, which, I mean, they benefited from having really good guard play that year, but a total disaster on defense. Could not stop anybody. The Michigan 7-10, 8-9, whatever that was, that first round game against them was an instant classic, a total banger.
Yes.
But it kind of laid bare the problem was that even in a peak roster year, they couldn't. I mean, they scored 91 and still couldn't win in regulation against Michigan. So he had to completely shift it to Illinois, and it's helped him, by reworking the defensive philosophy, it's helped him sustain a career as a really good high major coach. We don't really know, especially with a really fully reworked team. Like, there's not a lot of Samford crossover here. A lot of these guys are going to be like 1 year mercenaries, learning all this stuff on the fly, trying to figure out what they want to do. I know that the theory of the system is it turns players loose and lets them just play, but there is structure here. You have to be in certain spots at certain times. You have to do certain jobs. Can you do all of these things in year one, run such extreme sets both ways, and be an NCAA tournament team? If they do, that is a gigantic success to me, because it at least proves to me Bucky ball can work better than I think it will. And if we get that Oklahoma State season, but with worse offense, the bottom could really fall out for them. So I'm going to be locked into a lot of their games, I think.
Yeah, they're like right at the top of any League Pass-esque rankings I'm going to have, ESPN Plus rankings, whatever we want to call it here. Every game is going to feel must watch because it is up and down, and it's such a lab experiment of how does this work at this level. They went across the pond to get a key piece, Ruben Dominguez, so it that even adds to me like the little bit of hired gun feel to the roster. The guards maybe are not quite the level relative to competition that he had at Samford. I think he had really good guards there year after year. But yeah, to your point, I think there's a lot more structure than it gets credit for. I mean, he won state championship after state championship in high school in Alabama, and it wasn't because he was out-talenting teams. And I don't think they were really out-talenting the SoCon. They were just so different than the SoCon. SoCon's like highly execution-based, not always the most athletic conference. They were really high in three-point attempt rate basically every single year. And now you go to the SEC where you want to play something where athleticism is a big part of it. The SEC is going to answer that in spades. So I can't wait to watch them. And does Bucky have to acquiesce to the style and the level of play and kind of give a little on his system, or does he get to just keep pressing the gas pedal? It's going to be extremely fun to watch there.
The upside case is obviously Nate Oates, because we had some similar questions about Nate Oates before he came to the SEC. Can you play that fast in the SEC? Can you do the math ball style? But his is such an extreme version. Like, in terms of math ball, they win pretty much every game as a math equation. Like, they don't take bad shots. And defensively, way, way better coach than he gets credit for. The defenses, even the bad ones, can really make you think and make you work harder than you should. Bucky's best defense through 5 tries at D1 is 122nd.
Yeah, and both of them, I think, have the influence of at that tempo, every possession is a little more efficient on both sides of the ball because there's so many transition possessions, and that does tilt things inherently a little more towards offense. But you're going to have to be a little better defensively, a little more stout. And they've got some guys that project that way, Federico and Diba, the recent addition that they just got, and AG's okay, but I think there could be some real problems on that end of the floor. They didn't really rebound the last 2 years at Samford. They foul a ton because they're really gambling for turnovers, and that kind of defense just gets punished at the SEC level.
I do think the shooting is going to be a real concern at times. I think that they can score. I think obviously you have to score and you play this fast, but there's some weird like give and take, like your turn, my turn, your turn stuff here with Jakari Lane and Pop Isaacs that I don't love. I've never really liked Pop Isaacs as a like impact player. I think he can score, certainly, but it might take him a lot of shots to get there. Mbako, I think, is the key for me. Like, if he can click and make everything work spacing wise, then they will be fine offensively. But there's so many pieces here that I like, but the fit is really questionable. And like Federico 2 times did not play in this style at all at Texas Tech or Pitt. Like, I do not think of him as a fast guy. I think of him as a great verticality person. I don't really think of him as like, we're going to watch Federico sprint up and down nonstop for his 22 allotted minutes.
Yep. Yeah. Is he going to be the high major Achor? I don't really know that. Which, hey, Bucky succeeded with a 2 times name before, so perhaps there's a little historical data there. But okay, I am going to combine my 7 and 8 because they're a little bit similar.
Okay,
Mike Shrewsberry and Josh Schertz. These are guys that were kind of hailed as the next big thing a little bit. Schertz had such a huge season at Indiana State with that elite offense. Shrewsberry at Penn State, is he a Jalen Pickett booty ball merchant? That's becoming the question for Mr. Shrewsberry. Really highly regarded in terms of all the sets he ran and had been part of the Brad Stevens tree for a little bit. So I'm just very intrigued to see how both of these two look this year. For Schertz, this is the last year with Robbie Avila, and having that kind of locked in mega stud, that's kind of been a theme for some of my coaching list here. The roster's much better and deeper. SLU's definitely invested. And can they actually go and win the A10, be a at-large caliber team with the investment they have with Avila? I'm curious. And then just on the other side of the coin there with Shrewsberry, it's year 3. They've got a big-time recruiting class, including the best recruit they've had in quite a while with Harrelson. Got 2 3-year starters in the backcourt, a veteran front court. Can he actually elevate this program back to where Mike Bray had it? I don't know. So either of those guys jump out to you, Will. Maybe they didn't get on your list, but do either of them intrigue you?
Schertz was an honorable mention. Schertz I didn't have, but I can definitely see it. With Schertz, as much as I like the Atlantic 10, this is not going to be a very good year for it. A lot of coaching turnover towards the top end of it has kind of decimated what you would hope from it. And what it's going to lead to is a really competitive start to finish race. Like, there are, I would say, 4, possibly 5 teams that would all have roughly rated the same, like within a couple, like, efficiency points of each other, like GWU, VCU, St. Louis, Dayton, Loyola, Chicago. All of those teams could win it. Even Mason, I think, can do it. So the potential is very much there for them to take advantage, of a down year, get through to the tournament and get in that way. But I'm with you. I would really like to see them, go a step beyond that. Like, let's see you be, I don't know, 48th in KenPom. Let's see you, kind of sneak onto like the bracket matrix, like the first 4 out, last 4 in. I want to see you in that this year. And with Notre Dame, I would actually say the exact same. I don't think that I need them to make the tournament right away. That's a really hard rebuilding job. And the underrated side of this, and kind of the downside of last year's national title game run in football, is that they have heavily slanted the NIL funds. It's all going to football. Some does fall down the ladder to men's basketball as is constructed anyway, but it's not nearly the same split as others. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State has the same issue in future seasons. Like, Tennessee is going to experience it a little bit. Football first schools are going to put most of that NIL fund and most of that drive towards the football program. So Shrews kind of has to do a little bit of a Penn State job here. He's got to make a little bit of hay out of not as much. The talent, like you've noted, a bit above the last 2 seasons. I'm kind of in the same boat on them too. If they can be a top 50 program this year, just contend for the first 4. If you're in the first 4 and you get in the tournament, I think that's a success. That's a step forward, and that's a sign like this project's going to work. Because if you're now in Torvik again, 66th, if they finish 66th in KenPom, you kind of get accusations not only of the Pickett merchant, but of the too complicated merchant, because we've heard a lot about like how deep the sets are, how many they run. At the college level, there is a such thing as overdoing it. We've seen coaches just have too much control. And so we could see that become a factor here of like, you're asking too much from the guys. So yeah. I don't know.
especially in an era where you don't get to have them for 3 or 4 all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe Notre Dame is a sort of exception to that because the academics are huge there. And if you're going there, there's a little more to it than just like picking a random school. But he's also got his son as one of those guys that's back for the 3rd year, and that's not always going to be an option. And if you are not able to introduce that whole playbook and get guys really comfortable with it, they're playing well, they're thinking instead of free flowing type stuff. Kind of what we mentioned with Bucky, how everybody's a little bit more confident playing in that system. I just want to see either of those two take a real step forward. You mentioned like top 50 Ken Pound. I think that's a great barometer. SLU was outside the top 100 last year with all the injuries they had. Notre Dame's been 118th and 98th in the 2 seasons of Shrewsberry. I think both of them need to show a little bit of a step forward given the roster situations that they have.
Yeah,
all right, who's next for you?
We've just got to see them. I don't know. This is not like it's a good ACC again. I mean, I hate to pound on the ACC over and over, but it's the truth. Like,
it's better, but it's not. Yeah, it's not a classic
schedule.
ACC.
The scheduling really doesn't make me think it's any better, Jim.
True.
That's really frustrating to see those.
Yep. All right, so who you got next?
Controversial pick here, my friend. Scott Drew at Baylor. Scott Drew is nowhere near the hot seat. Let's go and get that out of the way. Fully, completely safe, has earned the right to do whatever he wants whenever. I'm going to be honest, I was kind of stunned to find out. I think he's like 53, 52. He is young for what you think. Sorry, Scott Drew's 55, but still. I mean,
still younger than I expect, yeah.
Yeah. So he's just been there so long, you would think he's a lot older. But we have to note the last 3 years, after some really strong seasons, and lest we forget a really strong middle of the 2010s when they consistently were like 2, 3, 4 seeds. Last 3 years, 23-11, 24-11, 20-15. Not really what we've grown to expect. And this upcoming team is really bizarre to evaluate. I don't totally know how you felt about him. I looked at it several times and I was like, this team could finish anywhere from 14th to 60th. I really don't know. It could be top 15. It could be NIT. It could be a 9 seed. I have no idea. And what direction they go feels like it could say more than it should about Scott going forward, especially in what I think is year 22 or 23 at Baylor.
Yeah, and they've been a victim of what we call the brain drain on the staff. Tang, Jacobs, he's lost some guys that have been what we thought instrumental to the success there. Offense hasn't really missed much of a beat over the years, but the defense has really fallen off. The zone looks haven't helped them when they've had to turn to them, and I think they switch too much or too easily in man-to-man and set themselves up in bad matchups, and that's hurt their rebounding, and it just hasn't quite had the same luster to it in recent years. And yeah, they turn over every scholarship spot. They don't bring back like a minute played from last year or a point scored. So it kind of becomes a your guess is as good as mine situation there. How much do you love the newcomers and how does it come together with the staff that they have? I'm a little lost there. I think that's a really good one just because over the last 3 years, it hasn't felt like the same Baylor, the same two-way juggernaut that they had been for years and years. I know they got 2-3 seeds in that span, but he hasn't seen the Sweet 16 since he won the national championship. And part of that is because they've kind of been tilted so heavily towards one side of the ball.
And they have had some injuries that have really harmed them in a couple of these seasons, but I don't think that's an excuse when really since Jerome Tang left, 107th, 72nd, and 62nd in defense. That just limits so severely the extent of what you can do. Like in 2023-24, they had a top 6 offense, but they were 72nd in defense, finished 15th. And if you want to contend for the Big 12 title, like we think you can, that defense has got to be at least top 50. So
Yep.
I've got to see them take a serious step forward. And even then, you got to retain the offensive excellence they've come to be known for.
Yeah, they were 12th in the Big 12 in defense that year in efficiency in league play. I need a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to go with I've got 2 left. Next one is in the Darren DeVries vein of things. Kevin Willard, who I don't have like mega high expectations for this year. I don't know what Villanova fans' expectations are, but I look at it like this. They want to be better than what Kyle Neptune was. They invest like they're going to be better than what the results Kyle Neptune was providing. But I think this roster is pretty clearly objectively worse than what Neptune was throwing out there. So how much better can they be? He's definitely a better coach than Neptune. He's a floor raiser. I don't think they're going to like bottom drop out, but if they're the same level as Neptune was last year and don't make the tournament, how does Villanova feel about that? And the added sprinkle ingredient to this is just the departure from Maryland was so weird in the NCAA tournament. The press conferences, poorly kept secret. He like wanted to stay, but then he was getting booed by Maryland fans, so he decided to leave. That was at least somewhat semi-reported. It's kind of a mess. I think there's a big spotlight on him this year at a pretty big time program, particularly in the last 10 or 15 years with Jay Wright. So I'm excited to see that and how it plays out with the sort of downgrading roster, but upgrading coach.
Had old Kev in my honorable mentions.
Okay.
What a disappointing Sweet 16 game, not least because instead of doing the right thing when you have these, like how in bowl games a coach is like going to leave and then they don't, and then they just get demolished by Army or whoever.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that where I was like, oh, they're going to lose by 30. But if you remember, like, I'm pretty sure they led very late in the first half. Like, they were really good for 15 minutes. Yep. And then it was like somebody let the air out of the balloon very slowly, and then it all came apart.
Yeah, their last 10 minutes, there was no air in their balloon.
No, it was like it's like those airless basketballs, the 3D printed ones. Those aren't going anywhere. Kelvin it's an interesting thing to me. I think based on the roster, it would represent a really good coaching job to me if they made the tournament. And I don't think Villanova fans want to hear that, but I'm sorry, this just isn't a very good roster. Caden Lewis is a very good player. I think is going to be pretty solid as a freshman. Bryce Lindsey, I liked at JMU. But beyond that, it's a lot of Maryland cast-offs and or G5 cast-offs. Like, man, I really don't feel good about having Devin Askew in your starting lineup. That's a scary, scary thing to look at and think of. I wish that they would have gotten like 1 to 2 better players here. They took a lot of volume. Like, I think 9 of these players played D1 basketball last year, which is good. And then you have 3 4-stars to fill it out. But it just isn't very good on the whole, and I don't like it. I don't think it's a good fit. If this team, God, I can't believe I'm saying this about Villanova. If this team is like 46th in Ken Pom in March, he's done a really good job. Because otherwise, I think this team could be like mid-60s.
Yep, I think that feels exactly right. I kind of view them as that more mid-60s-ish, and it's going to take him actually elevating what's here to be in the top 50, to be in a bubble conversation. Would you say that every starter on Maryland would easily be the best player on this team?
Yes. Like, if this team had Rodney Rice, who, lest we forget, got $3.1 million from USC and was probably Maryland's like 3rd or 4th best player last year.
Yep.
Rodney Rice could score 24 on this team if he wanted.
Yeah, he could have the Eric Dixon year, lead the country in scoring.
If you had him over, if you had him over the guard options on this team, easily the best player.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a big downgrade for what he had last year, which was kind of like the cresting of his Maryland tenure. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it again this year with this group. All right. I've got one more. How many do you have left, Will?
Dose got 2.
Okay. All right. Let's see what you got.
Number 9, permanent entry on every single interesting coaching seasons list. Penny Hardaway at Memphis. This is too easy. Come on. If he's not on your every year list, which he may not be, I have no idea, could have a little reworking to do. This man...
No, I will just say, Will, I wrote him an honorable mention with the sentence, I'm always interested in Penny. So I'm with you.
Truly, in the truest sense of the Bravo Network term, a messy bitch that loves drama. Penny Hardaway, this man is addicted to mess. I can't wait to see what this team is. If Doug McDaniel goes for 25 a night, not really that shocked. If Aaron Bradshaw is off the team by week 4, not shocked. If Sincere Parker plays all 30 or 0, not shocked. I have no clue. I can't freaking wait to see what this team does. And I think the thing that we have to remember every single year with Memphis, and I always do a bad job of remembering, incredible team in the Penny era as an underdog. I don't know what the current number is. I just know that last year they entered 13-3 against the spread as an underdog of any kind under Penny, which is insane. Or it was like the last 3 years, but point stands. And it only grew last year because they beat UConn. They pulled off all of these great wins as an underdog. As a favorite of 6 or more, disastrous. I think the win rate against the spread for them as a favorite of 6 or more is like 32 or 33%. And so you can already envision it, my friend. You can envision them playing whoever's on their schedule. I don't have it in front of me, but we'll just guess it's UConn again, even though it's not. It definitely won't be Tennessee. I know that much. Whoever it is that's like 19th in Ken Pom at the start of the season, that's a win. Lock it in. Rice at home in January, that's a loss. Lock it in. Tulane at home in February, that's a loss. Lock it in. These guys are content machines. Penny, like, because I don't know that he can get fired unless they go like 18-13. Maybe that would open the door. But I don't think that he can do enough to make anyone happy either. Like last year was about the very best case scenario, and it ended with everybody really upset. So I really look forward to whatever it is they do this year.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add just besides even on the favorites of 6 or more. I think there's a point where they were as favorites of 15 or more, like 1-15 against the spread in their last 16. Like it's just a team that goes to sleep as a big favorite. And I don't auto bet a lot of things. That was like I set it and forget it type of sense. Then yes, they're awesome as underdogs. The other thing I love about Penny is he is a maniac with his non-conference schedule. Like they'll play like 2 or 3 bye games, and then they will just play home and homes with power conference teams. They'll play anywhere. They're playing San Francisco and Memphis. They got Ole Miss, UNLV, Purdue, Baylor, Louisville, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Utah State, all on their non-conference schedule. I love how much he just kind of leans into that stuff and wants to play big games. But I guess it's better. He should be scheduling to be an underdog in every game based on what we're saying here.
he should play the Mississippi Valley State schedule.
Yes.
Okay, so I looked it up. So I want you to guess, and there's 25 games involved here over the last 4 seasons. What is Memphis's record against the spread since the 2021-22 season as a favorite of 12 points or more?
Out of 25, I'm going to say it's 4-21.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
They're 23-2 straight up, which is amazing. They don't lose these games. They just, every single one of these games is, lemon booty time. Let me read off some personal favorites for you here. January 11th of this year, 74-70 over ECU as a 13-point favorite. January 10th, 2024, 19-point home favorite against UTSA, won 107-101. What a freaking program, man.
It's great. I hope he never gets fired for the content.
20 years, lifetime contract, please.
Yep, I'll sign up right now. I would love it. Okay, we're gonna let Penny off the hook here. I've got one more. You've got one more. I wonder if they're similar, but my last one is it's purely because of the case study and the topic we're doing here. Shaka Smart, because he's the ultimate continuity and development test case this season with just completely stiff-arming the portal, not paying any attention to it, wanting to cultivate the identity that he's built there and have it be kind of an old school program where he doesn't recruit over anybody. If you come here, you're going to play for him when you're a veteran. And I love that outlook. I want it at more schools, but I don't know if it's going to be the most effective way of doing things. And this is kind of the ultimate year for it, where they don't have the returning star like Cam Jones or Tyler Kolek or Oso. Does Chase Ross elevate? Does Ben Gold elevate? Do they really get something from last year's freshman class? Parham and Demarius Owens had a lot of hype last year. Can their freshmen help this year? It's just kind of this such a, I don't want to call it a fossil or a dinosaur, but it's sort of what it is in this era where it's becoming extinct to play like this. And that makes it something that interests me because it's just not what you see very often.
Yeah, they're going to be really intriguing because I won't be shocked if they're a lot better in February and March than they will be at the start of the season. Kind of how we used to see with these continuity teams, or teams that didn't take a lot of transfers or had like the gap year, I guess. But
Yeah.
I had Shaka and Marquette on the honorable mentions. I think I'm going to watch more than I should of them this year, just because it's so funny to say this based on how basketball was like 6 years ago. But this is essentially the only high major team doing it this way this year. You'll see this at the mid major level, obviously. Like Illinois State is doing this. The service academies do this by nature. Like there's not much in the way of transfers in or out for obvious reasons.
Ivy and Patriot, both of them for sure.
So they operate way more like a Colgate now, which
Yeah.
I just don't know how that's going to work, but I'm really intrigued to find out. That's a good shout. If I were to rank this out to 15, I would have had him like 12th or 13th, but I think they belong on this list.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. I've got an honorable mention list I'll hit, but we got to get your final squad here, Mr. Warren.
I cycled through a lot of options for this. So we'll do my HMs after yours. I went off the board here, but I like it. It's Josh Pastner at UNLV. This is such a weird hire. It's so strange. For one, big hat tip to Josh Pastner for coaching in Memphis, Atlanta, and Las Vegas during his career as a highly religious man.
Yeah.
One of the strangest trios you could possibly do. So I look forward to whatever comes from that. But secondly, I kind of think this roster is pretty good. Like I didn't expect it at all, but like Miles Shea from UC Irvine, awesome point of attack defender. Gibbs Lawhorn from Illinois could really, bloom in an expanded role in the Mountain West. Kamani Hamilton was awesome at high point. I don't know how that's going to transfer up because they didn't play anybody, but there's like enough on this team to where if you're like top 75 UNLV this time next year, totally could see it. They're going to contend to be in one of those top 4 spots in the Mountain West because there's a bit of a power vacuum after like San Diego State, Boise State, Utah State. We don't really know what's going to happen beyond that. And Pastner, I don't know what he wants to do stylistically. I heard a lot of different things. He kind of bounced around all over the place with his styles in previous stops. I'm just really intrigued, man. There's a lot of different ways this could go. A good UNLV is good for the sport to me as well. I really want them to be good and better than they've been. When they're relevant, I think the Mountain West is more interesting. It just adds greater depth. And it really adds greater depth to the Mountain West Conference tournament.
Yes.
Because
I was going to say this. Yes.
Because we've waited. Gary Parrish made this joke last year. Every single year around this time, we're like, oh, UNLV rounding into shape. Maybe this is the year. And they instantly lose to like, Wyoming or whoever in the first round. It could be the year. You never know.
Yep.
I want to see it.
When they're the ones hosting, there's always, that intrigue of like, maybe this is UNLV playing the home games. It's not the same court, so maybe it doesn't feel quite the same, but it's in Vegas and they're the ones that are used to it. Will, if I told you I had them on my top 75 ballot for our top 50 votes this year, would you be totally flabbergasted?
Not totally. I would have them top 75.
Okay. I had them 69th behind San Diego State, Boise State, and Utah State in that conference, but I think the talent level's there, and Pastner maybe wasn't the right guy for Memphis. I don't know if he's the right cultural fit at UNLV either, but I think he's a pretty solid basketball coach, and he has a roster that's capable of competing in the Mountain West. So I'm on board with this. I'm very excited to watch them.
We have to. So since we've lost Pastner from ESPN coverage, I do think there needs to be like the Pat McAfee deal for Tom Crean. We can't lose Crean. He's all we have left on the halftimes that I can get behind right now.
We don't let him go to the coaching ranks again. He stays there.
We pay him. I only want him to review basketball on halftime and give thoughts on the Taco Bell Mexi Melt on Twitter.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. All right. I will fly through my honorable mention here, just like a quick sentence about all of them. I have 2 pairings that I almost went with. First was Jerome Tang, Wes Miller, the Big 12 Year 4 bros that we had 45, 46 in our countdown. It's kind of a hot seat one there. Ed Cooley and Kim English. I just think those 2 are inextricably linked because of the Providence drama, and it's kind of been a lose-lose for both, or every party, lose for every coach and team there. Intrigued to watch there. Rick Pitino, because I don't feel like the roster fits his style. Mick Cronin, same thing. Don't feel like the roster totally fits his style. Brian Hodgson for the potential vault straight up to Power 5. We talked about him a little on our jump seat episode. And Anthony Grant, who is an alum at Dayton, but I think the Flyer faithful are a little restless. It's a great job at that level. But he's an alum and has been through kind of personal hell. So I don't know if they would actually push him out. But I'm curious to see how that new look Dayton roster works because they kind of had to reshuffle a lot around there. What about you, Will? Who ended up in your honorable mention?
A few different ones. Will Wade, NC State is pretty obvious. I think we're all interested to see what happens there. Joe Pasternak at UC Santa Barbara has a big year ahead for me because that is an alarmingly talented, at least by name, roster for that league. But I think you and I would both agree we trust Russ Turner to get more out of UC Irvine than we do anybody out of UCSB. Tang at KSU, Red Autry, Syracuse, really big year ahead for them. I pondered him for the 10th spot. We've got a lot of Syracuse defenders in the thread for some reason. Or maybe it's just one guy, I don't know. But there's a lot going on there to where, like, if they miss the tournament again, I don't think you can bring him back for a fourth year because I'm not sure what would have been shown in years 1 through 3 to make you confident. Patino at St. John's, a couple of off the board ones that, and by off the board, I mean just like conferences we don't talk about a lot or think about a lot, but have coaches in weird situations that I think could be big swing years for them. We mentioned Brian Hodgson in the jump seat pod. If USF wins like 27 games this year, all bets are off for what he does in 26, 27. And this is a really weird one. But while I think most people could name 7 of the 8 schools that have won 2,000 games in NCAA college basketball, I don't think most people could name the 8th, which is Temple. Adam Fisher, we really have not seen much from them beyond a gambling scandal and beyond post-gambling scandal, a shock run to the AAC title game. They were really bad last year. They were really bad his first year. But lest we forget, 6 years ago, this was a team in the first freaking 4, an at-large bid. Like, it wasn't long ago they were a yearly entry in the tournament. And not just under John Chaney, but under Fran Dunphy, they're a 5 seed twice. That's a program that doesn't take losing well and shouldn't. I know that they're losing a little bit in the shuffle of like the NIL era, but they already don't pump much money to football. And I think there's going to come to a head where if they don't at least contend in the American this year, like not even win it, but like be top 4, that could get hot really fast for them. And there's a lot of Northeast options. I think we both know that would love to have that job with that history.
Yeah, I mean, both of his seasons so far have been worse than all of Aaron McKee's seasons in terms of Ken Palm finish. And Aaron McKee got fired after 4. Fisher also, he's a assistant for Shrewsberry, like adding to that, like is the luster fading from that tree / just style. I've been kind of surprised at how bad and just undisciplined I felt they looked when I watched them. Just kind of a little bit of roll the balls outy. Last year they were bottom 5 in the country in assist rate. It just was like your turn, my turn. Let's see if we can figure it out. And they haven't played much defense either. So that is a very interesting one because I would not have gotten that right had you trivia'd me with that 8 schools that have won 2,000 games.
I'll tell you the other 7 because they're all obvious: Kansas, Kentucky, UNC, Duke, Syracuse, UCLA, and St. John's. Temple being in that group is pretty wild.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have gotten St. John's. Probably would have gotten maybe like my 9th guess would have been Syracuse, but St. John's would have been tough, and Temple it would have taken me a really long time.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else to add, Will, before we let the people go this week?
No, I think this is a really interesting year for a lot of coaches because we're going to see if NIL continues to expand outward the way it has in terms of budgets. Like, will we see a $20 million team next year? Ohio State made headlines in football for a $20 million team last year, and that's 85 guys. We have at least one confirmed team this year for 12 to 15, depending on how you split up the scholarships. And you barely had them in your top 25. We're going to have to see, like, going forward, does that expand outward? Do more coaches have sudden retirements or departures? I think a lot of coaches have really intriguing years ahead of them where expectations are going to be high and there are only so many spots in the Elite 8 and Sweet 16 to go around.
Yep. Yeah, we've already had some shock retirements before, and I think it could continue as the revenue sharing stuff happens, and it just becomes an even more different sport than it has been in the past. So, lots to look forward to in the sport this year. Could be an adventurous offseason, tumultuous offseason next year. These are the coaches we'll be watching. He is Will Warren. I am Jim Root. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to Corey behind the scenes for the production. Of course, Trilly, our supreme overlord at Basket Under Review, and you, the listener. We appreciate you tuning in, and we hope you come back next week here on Stats by Will and Jim. Until then, cheers.